Simcha, celebration, Simcha, Simcha, celebration of life.
Hello, welcome to Simcha, a celebration of life. I'm Nikki Wallman.
Recently, the Cape Town Jewish Museum hosted an exhibition called Zapiro, Jiving with Mandela. This exhibition celebrated the life and contributions of one of South Africa's greatest citizens, Nelson Mandela. His struggles, successes and shortcomings are portrayed by acclaimed political cartoonist Jonathan Shapiro, better known to us as Zapiro.
I think any cartoonist that you speak to, well, certainly every cartoonist I've ever spoken to will say that he or she started drawing really young, and many of us also didn't know how to turn that drawing and that quirky way of drawing into our life's work or career. It's quite hard to define yourself as a cartoonist when people around you are going to become, doctors and lawyers and teachers and things that are a little bit more definable. I think perhaps there's been a bit of a shift now. I think that there is maybe a little bit less of a conventional way of looking at things. But certainly growing up in quite cloistered white South Africa in the 1960s and 70s, I found it difficult to see myself as a cartoonist. So, the whole exhibition pretty much starts with this giant cartoon, which we all felt says something about Madiba's whole life, I suppose. And we put this little bench here, so you could kind of sit there in the classroom with Madiba and imagine yourself being anything that you wanted to be. Because it is about, I suppose, the imagination of a country to become something that it clearly wasn't. And with Madiba as I use the word embodiment all the time, but as the embodiment of that. And my activism came out of what my mother imbued in all of my siblings and myself. There were 5 of us. My mother, Gaby, she was Bergloss initially before Shapiro. She came from Germany, and she escaped the Holocaust. The family actually left in 1933 after Kristallnacht and went to Holland, and then came back again thinking that things were going to be better. And people just had no idea how bad it was going to be, and really escaped at the end of 37, beginning 38, when she was a child. She went to England, but she never forgot the real lesson, I think, of the Holocaust, that terrible things and oppression mustn't happen to anyone. And she drew those parallels with what she saw in South Africa when she met my father and, as a young woman, came to South Africa, started a family. And I think she imbued in all my siblings and myself that understanding that we were living in an unjust society and we had to do something about it. It took me a long time, though, to really get off my butt and do something about it. I think you need to have those catalytic moments. And for me, it wasn't my university time, although I did understand things. I did help with posters and with a little bit of activism. It was when I heard that I was not going to be able to get out of the army, which I'd been trying to stay out of. And I heard that in 1982, and I was already 23 years old. And that, I just saw red, and I thought, okay, I'm going to fight this system. I refused to carry a gun. I went up to the first people I saw with brass things on their shoulders, and I said, I'm new here, I'm not prepared to carry a weapon, what do I do? And they say, you'll know about it when the time comes. And believe me, I did get to know about it. I was very, very singled out and harassed, and they even tried to turn the fellow conscriptees against me and beat me up, which is a typical technique of authoritarian societies. But I survived that, and eventually they gave me this bizarre object to carry, which the lieutenant made one one Sunday afternoon, spent his Sunday afternoon making this ridiculous thing. It's bloody heavy, let me tell you. And I had to carry this thing, which I sort of became a bit of a laughing stock, which I didn't mind, because it was laughing stock in a funny way. I was kind of making fun of them. And it was obvious. I was walking around with this ridiculous object. And there was a corporal who was so dumb, and I'm afraid that wasn't that unusual amongst the corporals, but he was really dumb. He made me stand guard with this thing. I said, listen, corporal, this is what I've got. He said, jy staan wag met jou peloton. So I went out there with my lead pole in the ready position, and I stood there outside the most public section of one of the key camps up in Pretoria, the Voortrekhoogte, as all the generals and colonels were coming back from their Sunday away. And there in the evening there's this troopie with a lead pole, and I had the most fantastic double takes. You know, they'd look and they'd see, and they'd go, what is that? And in the next morning, all hell broke loose, and I had to go and see the commanding officer, and they told me never to darken their doors with this thing again. I smuggled it out in a black plastic bag. I could see all the eyes like kind of raised like that as I went out. That bloody Shapiro again. And anyway, I disappeared with it, and it's been my kind of trophy of, it's the beginning of being a kind of a walking cartoon, I suppose.
An exhibition, Zapiro, Jiving with Mandela, traced the life of Nelson Mandela from prisoner to president to pensioner. This 130 cartoon exhibition was a truly inspiring journey through the first 2 decades of our new South Africa, as depicted by Zapiro.
One of the cartoons that's up on this exhibition came from an old joke that I had heard 25 years before I drew the cartoon. You know, sort of as young as I remember jokes that I could retell. And that's the kind of thing that sits in one's brain if you're involved in this sort of activity. You train yourself to access metaphors and stories that connect in some way to what you're trying to say, because metaphor and story and narrative and interesting characters are what transfers the message. I have a very strong Jewish identity. Both my parents were Jewish. I had a fully Jewish background. At the same time, I see that as my identity, but not as defining my loyalties. One of my favorite cartoons that I've got up here is a cartoon of Joe Slovo with Madiba and with Jay Naidu. When Jay Naidu was the minister with our portfolio in charge of the Reconstruction and Development Program, and they're out in the middle of what looks like a lake, but you actually see it's the Cape Flats flooded during winter, and they're in the middle of an informal settlement, and they're in a little boat, and there's a woman standing sort of chest high in water, and she says, and this was the kitchen, there's a little primus stove standing there, and Joe Slovo thinks to himself, he faces the view and he thinks to himself, oy vey, do I miss the struggle? Which is, I mean, I made it Joe Slovo, he was Minister of Housing, and so it was appropriate. He was actually on that little trip with Jane. When I saw the three of them there together, I suddenly thought of that cartoon. And I did the cartoon, and he actually used it in a speech. He made a speech where he began the speech by saying, I saw this cartoon of myself the other day sitting in there, and he explained it, oy vey, do I miss this struggle? People laughed, and he said, actually, I think the cartoonist had a point. It really is harder being in government than being in struggle, which was the point I was trying to make. But the Yiddishness of that and the oy vey and everything, it somehow worked really well, you know, for this particular Minister of Housing, who ironically was a committed communist and supposed to also have not really a religious connection, but also had that kind of Jewish those Jewish roots. He actually was, I think he had a strong Jewish identity too. I think my own Jewishness and my exposure to Yiddishkeit and everything actually comes through quite often. And here, I've had this opportunity now, which I didn't expect and which I didn't ask for, of being quite fated in a way. I mean, I've never had such a brilliant exhibition anywhere, and I've had a lot of exhibitions. Never had people take so much care and do it so brilliantly. So, and in a place where I didn't expect to be. I'm very happy to be here with my background, and I can imagine my grandparents being very proud of me, which they probably wouldn't be for all the politics that I espouse at any moment, but they'd be very proud, and my parents too, because my mother was an activist along with the rest of my siblings. So yeah, it's great to have this exhibition here.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and please tune in again same time next week. And don't forget to find us on Facebook at Spirit Sister Productions Network. As always, from me, Nikki, and the team, shalom and have a safe and peaceful week.